And so, the series we're starting today is called Emotion Erosion. And for the next couple of weeks, we are going to have a look at some of the emotions that can really take control of our decision making and has the power to destroy your life. We're going to talk about the emotions that are constantly competing for control over your decisions. Okay, I want to start with a question. How many of you, and if you're honest, have ever looked at someone who had all the money, all the freedom, all the resources in the world and watched them absolutely destroy their life with it? Yeah, all of us. And in that moment, you probably thought, I would never do that. If I had what they had, I would make way better decisions than that. And I get it. We all think that. We look at the people with total freedom. Nobody's telling them what to do. No consequences to worry about. And we think the reason they're messing up is because they have bad people around them, or bad information, or they just didn't know what I know. But here's what's actually true. The reason people with total freedom still make terrible decisions is not because they had bad advice from outside. It's because they took bad advice from the inside. They listened to the voices in their own head. And that internal advice, was filtered through emotions. And emotions, when they are running the show, will absolutely ruin your life. Anger will ruin it. Fear will ruin it. Insecurities will ruin it. Jealousy, greed, it will ruin your life. Not because those emotions are fake, they're real, they are powerful, and they feel completely justified. But they are terrible decision makers. And so, the series we're starting today is called Emotion Erosion. And for the next couple of weeks, we are going to have a look at some of the emotions that can really take control of our decision making and has the power to destroy your life. We're going to talk about the emotions that are constantly competing for control over your decisions. Because if we don't talk about it, if you never take charge of what's happening inside you, it doesn't matter how much freedom you have on the outside, you will still make decisions that will wreck things. Now, most of us are actually pretty good at mentoring our behavior. You know what I mean? When you're in a job interview, you don't say everything you think. Or when you're at your in-laws, during Christmas at your in-laws' place, you hold it together. And when a traffic cop pulls you over, you're very polite. We manage our behaviors all the time, and we're good at it. But Jesus, and this is where it gets interesting, Jesus didn't invite his followers to monitor their behavior. He invited them to monitor what's happening inside them. And that is a completely different thing. So, here's the setup. Jesus is doing his thing. He's teaching, healing, the whole deal. And a group of religious leaders showed up from Jerusalem. These guys have made a long trip, and they're not here to learn. They're there to try and catch Jesus out. And the best they could come up with, after traveling all the way, is this. Listen to what they say. Why do your disciples disobey our age-old tradition? For they ignore our tradition of ceremonial hand-washing before they eat. That's it. That's what they came up with. Your guys aren't washing their hands properly. Now, before you think this is all about hygiene, it wasn't. It wasn't about germs. This was about a religious system. There was a set of unwritten rules called the Oral Torah, extra laws that the religious leaders had created over generations. It was rules on top of rules, traditions on top of traditions. And the thing about these rules is, the religious leaders were pretty good at following it because they made it. They made rules they could really easily win. Rules that made them look holy. Rules that also happened to give them control over everyone else. And Jesus saw right through it. He doesn't answer their question. He flips it. He says, let me ask you a question, and listen to what Jesus asked. And why do you, by your traditions, violate the direct commandments of God? It's like Jesus say, you talk a big game about honoring God, but you've built a religious system that lets you look good from the outside while completely ignoring what God actually said. And then Jesus quoted the prophet Isaiah, something that was written 700 years before this conversation. He says, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God. 700 years earlier, God had already seen this pattern coming. People who say the right things, people who sing the right songs, follow the right rules, but whose hearts are somewhere completely different. And I think if we're honest, this is not just a first century religious leader problem, this is a human problem. We are all capable of managing what people see while ignoring what's actually going on inside of us. Saying the right things and feeling completely different inside. Looking fine on the outside, falling apart on the inside. Which is exactly why what Jesus says next matters so much. Jesus then does something that would have been genuinely shocking to the crowd around him. He calls the whole crowd together, not just the religious leaders, everyone. And then he says, it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that comes out of your mouth. The disciples are watching all of this and going, Jesus, the Pharisees are not happy right now. And Jesus basically says, leave them. They are blind people trying to lead other blind people. They all are going to end up in a ditch. And then Peter, who is in typical Peter style, been standing there confused the whole time, and he finally asked, explain to us the parable that says people aren't defiled by what they eat. And Jesus looks at him and basically says, are you still not getting it, Peter? And this is how Jesus explains it. But the words you speak come from the heart. That's what defiles you. For from the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, all sexual immorality, theft, lying and slander. These are what defiles you. The heart. That's the source. Whatever comes out, the words, your actions, the decisions, it all starts here, in the heart. And what's actually going on in here, underneath everything people see, it's what counts. Now Jesus lists some heavy stuff, evil thoughts, murder, adultery, theft. And most of us are sitting here today and say, oh, okay, I haven't murdered anyone, so I'm probably okay. But Jesus also says lying, slander, arrogance, envy, bad judgment. And suddenly the list gets a lot closer to home. Because here's what Jesus is saying underneath all of this. The things that put you at odds with God are the things that hurt the people God loves. God takes it personally when you hurt the people He loves, and He loves everyone in your life. You can't claim to love God and constantly hurt the people He made. Or let me say it like this. What breaks God's heart is what you do to the people He died for. That's the pattern. It's not about the food. It's not about hand washing. It's not about the rituals. It's about what's in your heart and whether what's in your heart is hurting the people around you. And then Jesus says something that takes all the pressure of religious performance. You know, washing your hands a certain way, there's no benefit to God in that. Praying on your knees, there's no benefit to God. Coming to church every single Sunday, that doesn't benefit God. Those things exist for your benefit. They help you and they're good. But they are not scoring points with God. They are not earning anything. Because God is not measuring your ritual. He's looking at your heart. And your heart always shows up in how you treat other people. That's the measure. That's the mirror. Not the performance, not the appearance, but what actually comes out of you towards the people around you when nobody is watching and nothing is required. Okay, so if the problem is the heart, if the source of the stuff that wrecks our lives and hurt the people around us are in here, then what do we do? Because I can't just decide to stop feeling things. I can't wake up one morning and go, you know what? I've decided not to feel insecure anymore. Great. Fixed. Done. That's not how it works. The feelings are real. The emotions are real. The internal voices are real. But here's what Jesus invites us to do. He invites us to monitor what's happening in here. Not just managing what comes out, but actually paying attention to what's going on inside. And once you can see it, once you can name it, you can talk to it. And I know it sounds a bit strange, just stay with me. There's anger in you. And maybe that anger is completely justified. Maybe someone genuinely hurt you. Maybe you got treated badly. Maybe everything that happened to you was unfair. But justified or not, if anger is driving your decisions, it will take you to somewhere you don't want to go every single time. So you look at the anger and you say, anger, you're not the boss of me. You're in there. I can feel you, but you do not get to make this decision. Maybe there's envy in there. Someone else has something you want, a relationship, a job, a body, a life, and that voice inside you is constantly comparing, constantly calculating, constantly making you feel small. And Jesus invites you to say, envy, you're not the boss of me. Maybe there's fear in here, insecurity, the constant anxiety that you're not good enough, that you're always going to fall apart, that people might find out who you really are. And now you can say, hey, you in there, you're not the boss of me. Now, and this is important, this is not pretending those feelings doesn't exist. This is not performance. This is not putting up a face. This is actually the opposite of performance. This is going inward, being honest about what's in there, and then deciding that you are not going to let it run the show. Because here's the truth. You can feel angry and still choose a generous response. You can feel afraid and still choose a brave action. You can feel insecure and still choose to put someone else first. The feeling is not the decision. You are. But you have to know what's going on in there first. You have to monitor your heart, not just your behavior. So to finish with something Jesus said that is one of the most misunderstood invitations in the whole Bible. He says this, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. We usually read this and we think it means, if life is hard, come to Jesus, He will make it easier. But that's not quite what Jesus is saying. The burden He's talking about, the thing that's making people weary, is the weight of their own internal world. Those toxic voices inside your brain, those emotions pulling in every direction, that gap between what shows on the outside and what's actually going on in the inside. It seems like the world's version of peace says, if everything on the outside settles down, if the relationship is sorted, if the money comes in, if the job is sorted, the family is okay, then I'll have peace. But Jesus says, I give you peace that doesn't depend on any of that. I give you internal rest. Not because your circumstances are perfect, but because something is being settled inside you. He says, learn from me. Take on my way of living. Walk behind me and watch how I do it. In other words, follow Him. And His way is gentle. His way is humble. His way is not driven by fear or insecurities or anger or envy. His way is love. And love, real love, it's a decision, not just a feeling. So the invitation of this series is simple. Start paying attention to what's going on inside you. Name it, face it, and then say it out loud if you need to. You're not the boss of me. Because when Jesus is in charge of this space, when you're living from a heart that actually is close to God, what comes out of you will be different, and the people around you will feel it.